James,
Raf,
welcome back. Welcome back to the
that's good.
table.
Yeah. How did you spend your week off?
Oh, mate, there's no such thing as a week off. That's fixed mindset, week off. I did ride the new Sydney Metro, though, I will say that.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had a chance to get on there yet.
Which is a shame, because obviously the next hour we're going to be talking about the Sydney Metro. That's
about
technology, folks.
Trains are tech. And we're going to be talking about all the different... We've measured the time on each route, and we've compared it to other modes of transport. Mm-hmm. This is the way the episode is going to be structured. I'm going to propose a start point. You're going to propose an end point.
Yeah.
And then we're essentially going to determine how long it would take via a combination of bus and rail.
Yep.
Rail exclusively.
Yep.
Bus exclusively.
Yep.
And then metro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we're going to essentially figure out a per dollar calculation of how valuable the metro investment was.
Absolutely.
So we're going to run that for about an hour.
Yeah, we're doing the business case here today, folks. So welcome
for the Sydney Metro
to Down Round, and we promise we won't eat.
We're not going to eat any snacks, which we've had complaints about over the past little while. So if you've one of the, let's call it 5 to 10 people who have been complaining about our snack consumption over the past few episodes.
And you love the minutiae of people describing a spreadsheet, you're going to absolutely love this episode.
You're finally going to be thinking, these boys are talking to me. Psych!
Got him.
We're not talking about that stuff at all. We're talking about... We said no snacks, but we didn't say no can cracks.
Yeah, there's going to be can cracks.
I'm going to get this right next to the mic. Doesn't that just make you salivate?
Absolutely.
So it makes me salivate. No, we're talking about Telegram.
Yeah, some weird stuff has been going on.
Some arrests.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm going to put it out to you. Normally, if you're running a functional, effective software business, you do not get arrested.
Yeah, typically, this is true.
Typically, when you sit down and you think, I'm going to be a founder,
yes,
you think of a problem, you think of a solution, you think of sort of like a business development pathway, like how am I going to get to my exit?
Yeah.
How am I going to make money?
Yeah.
And then a secondary thought is, I'm never going to be arrested and prosecuted by law enforcement authorities in any jurisdiction.
Yeah, so about number 7 you're hoping. You go to
market. You might not write it down in your deck when you're pitching to VCs. Next slide, and I'm never going to be arrested.
Yeah.
But it's certainly on the back of your mind. But our friend Pavel Durov, founder of Telegram, was arrested in France.
Let's start at the start. Telegram. Actually, we should probably start at the start with him, right? Telegram, a messaging app, we'll get into it in a minute. He actually started with Russia's Facebook.
Yeah. No, he's had a bunch of different apps over the years, essentially. A lot of the software industry in Russia is about building sort of native capacity for various apps that are commonplace in the West. They have their own Google, they have their own
Yandex,
a number of services, and he's sort of worked in that space for a while, building out sort of like the Russian version of social media.
VKontakte.
Yeah, it's got a real utility. It's got a real Soviet name to it, doesn't it? But a lot of those Russian clone apps do have that. But yeah, so he was a Russian entrepreneur. He'd built a bunch of different things. It's surprising we haven't talked about Telegram before. We've talked around it. We might have brought it up.
I think in crypto episodes you might have mentioned.
We've brought it up in like the context of other, when we're talking about fucking WeChat and shit like that, we've probably brought up Telegram. Anyway, so we founded Telegram in 2013, which was initially a messaging app. It started off as a peer-to-peer messaging app in much the same vein as something like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or any of those other legion of apps. It came out around the same time as Signal. It sort of came to prominence around the same time. And some of its early marketing, which I think has sort of stuck with for a while, is that it was like a secure messaging app.
Yeah, so Durov, back in the VKontakte days, there was random kind of accusations of the government, Putin's government or whatever, controlling VKontakte, and they could spy on you and it wasn't safe enough or blah, blah, blah. And he was kind of in and out of that business, and it, slowly got bought by other big Russian conglomerates, and he was mad at them, and then he wasn't mad at them, and he got a big payout. And with all of his money, though, he kind of like, as this man who was seen as, a bit renegade and cared about privacy, he said, well, I'm not going to work on VKontakte anymore. I'm going to take my money and I'm starting Telegram. The government can't pry into it.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it started as this sort of peer-to-peer messaging service, picked up a lot of users via that way. It became really popular. It's one of those things where if someone in Australia or in many parts of the West on Telegram, they're probably on it for a somewhat weird reason.
Yeah.
Like no one, if you're in Australia, the UK, America, whatever, is using Telegram because it's like, I have to use it because everyone's using it.
Yeah, it's my group chats on Telegram.
That's just not
Once again, I know that we previously said on our Discord episode, which would have been a year ago, we're like, if you're using Discord as your like family chat app, Jesus. And then obviously got multiple messages, people being like,
I do use it as my family chat.
And in fact, we were listening to your podcast in the car with my family, who was on Discord as our family messaging app. So
that was both the most wholesome and most unwholesome message we've ever received.
But I'm sure there's a listener right now being like, "What do you mean? That's weird that me and my family use Telegram as our messaging app." So more power to you. We recognise that our audience has a breadth to it.
They come from different backgrounds. They have multiple interests. And I don't begrudge them any of it. But Telegram was really popular, and still is, in Russia, the array of sort of post-Soviet states. Let's say countries that were behind the Iron Curtain.
Yep.
But also
India, big in India.
Huge in India, other parts of Asia as well, as in like South Asia, Southeast Asia. It's big, and it is in countries like that the typical sort of messaging app that you would use.
Yeah, and it's probably worth pointing out some of the differences because I would say, at least in an Australian context, a lot of people don't use messaging apps in this way. That the thing that I feel like is different to like a WhatsApp or whatever, even though you can kind of do some of these functions in WhatsApp, although again, not particularly popular down here. I know it's not popular in the States either. Is a lot of that, it's a one-to-many kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to get to, because it started off just being as a one-to-one messaging app, but it evolved into supporting groups, which obviously as you mentioned, a lot of apps do. WhatsApp lets you have groups, but then like allowing you to support really, really big groups.
Yeah.
Like you can have groups in Telegram that have like 200,000 members in them, which again, I don't know if that's necessarily a great user experience, but you can do it. But then it started supporting basically these, as you say, like megaphone or like one-to-many groups. Whereas it's kind of like, it basically became a social media network. You could follow people on Telegram in their Telegram channel, and they post updates that everyone in the channel gets. And it kind of looks like a social media feed. You can look at their content, the videos and photos and text.
And there's a bunch of comments on them, right?
Like, there's like an inbuilt article function where you can like share something that looks a bit more formatted like an article to them. And you can comment on it and discuss the article in the comments, but you can't actually contribute to the main feed, which is by the person. In a lot of Eastern European countries, there are lots of brands and companies who do this. I think if there was a company in Australia that was like, follow us on Telegram, you would be like, do you sell like illegal vapes or something?
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a sleazy vibe.
Or crypto/NFT.
Yeah,
right?
like it's got a skeezy vibe that it doesn't necessarily have in some of the countries that it's more native in. But, and we're going to get to the arrest eventually, and we'll talk about the stuff about that. But if you're on the edge of your seat being like, he got arrested and you just stop talking about it, we're getting to that.
Yeah, we're getting to that. Context.
We're just giving you the long run up as we do. But it did actually get a lot of exposure and usage in Western countries because of basically this social function, because it's more or less entirely uncensored. They do allegedly moderate for like really extreme stuff like fucking like ISIS recruitment channels and like child porn rings, allegedly. But pretty much everything else is fair game.
That's Durov's like whole bit, right?
Totally.
He's a free speech absolutist.
He's a free speech guy.
Yeah. And at least that's the kind of public persona that he puts on. And like one of the reasons he fell out on VKontakte was that I don't know, he claims the government wanted information on some Ukrainians or whatever. This is back in the kind of 2014 stuff or whatever, and he refused to hand it over because he believes in privacy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, one of those
exactly.
kind of...
He sort of positioned himself, at least initially, against the Russian government and moved out. And now Telegram is based in Dubai, and he is a like UAE French citizen.
Yeah.
Which is a combo where it's like, you're not doing anything normal, mate.
Yeah.
If you were born in Russia and now you're a French UAE citizen, you're not running a fucking taco stand. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he sort of positioned himself initially against, when he's talking about censorship, he was talking about the Russian government, but now, he's obviously been sucked a little bit into the Western conversation about this, like your Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, kind of like,
and that was kind of thing. It was like, you are, quote unquote, allowed to talk about anything on there because it's not up to this platform to censor.
Yeah, totally. So in practice, what that means is that there's been, during COVID, all the anti-vax, anti-lockdown stuff was happening on Telegram. If you are a person who loves seeing footage from active war zones, particularly Russia, Ukraine, but also, the conflict in Gaza and wherever else, there are many, many channels on Telegram where people will share that content.
Yeah, if you loved rotten.com back in the day,
if you like seeing people get blown up, Telegram is the place to be. And in fact, it is apparently the place where Russians get their news about the war. So if you're a Russian person and you want to find out what's going on in the invasion of Ukraine and don't trust Russian state media to give you the straight dope, you will be in one of these like fucking enormous Telegram channels.
Yeah, there is that argument that it's first party sources, but I wonder about people who say that it's like it's the only place you can go for the truth, but so you have to kind of strap yourself in like 6 hours a day and just get yourself pummeled with frontline action. I don't know if it's not really like there's independent journalists,
No, but there is a lot of like,
I'm going to say it's like war porn. It's
for sure.
And gore porn, a lot of it.
Oh, right? Yeah. There's tons of that. That side of it, as I said, the COVID.
But I don't deny that, like, yes, I'm sure that you can get you are getting raw information from the front lines.
Well, like, however valuable you think the information is, that is where they look. And, like, this is the social network or the information channel where they see this stuff. So there's that. As I said, the COVID stuff, a lot of that was organized on there, like the anti-lockdown movement, you could say, happened on Telegram.
Yep, several pogroms in various subcontinental places.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
If you suspected someone of being a witch or a Buddhist or something like that, and you to get a kind of a gang of 20 or so people together to murder them, then
Telegram's a great place to organize that sort of thing. Yeah. So there was that, and obviously lots of crypto pump and dump stuff, a lot of NFT sort of discourse.
Well, there really is that kind of pipeline, the kind of ads on X to like literally that link to a Telegram group.
Yeah,
which that's where we're at, where you get an ad on Twitter to just be like immediately join some Telegram group.
Join a Telegram, like these channels.
Come on, man.
Anything that you can think of that's like vaguely skeezy on the internet, there will be a thriving Telegram subculture. Fucking porn exchange groups rife on Telegram, and both like legal porn and also fucking like child sexual abuse material.
Yeah, of course,
is a problem that they've said they're dealing with. So there's a lot of that. When they had those race riots in the UK the other week against immigration, again, a lot of that was organized on Telegram, which caused a bit of controversy. Again, the founders are like, we are facilitating free and open discourse and all these sort of things. Real marked contrast to Meta and Facebook. And again, very, very prominent in the countries that we're talking about, but also has a fair bit of penetration into like Western markets. But usually, as I said, you know how this is also a funny thing. You know how when I don't think they still do it, because like I have Telegram on my phone because I mostly it's just like to observe weird channels. When I find out something's going on, I want to find out how they're talking about it. But I know there was a period where it was like the app that people use to buy drugs. Like there was a brief period where it was like the place where drug dealers would operate. And there was also a period where every time someone that was in your contacts signed up to Telegram, it would just like send you a push notification.
Yeah, you get a notification.
Which probably makes sense in countries where it's like, oh, I can now connect with this person. I live in fucking Belarus and I'm connecting with other people in like a social context. But in Australia,
it's just like someone's about to buy drugs. Yeah.
Someone you know is about to purchase cocaine.
Yeah.
Or just like they're about to do something fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
They're about to be either sucked into a scam or they're about to have a lovely night.
They've started to scan, buy cocaine, potentially they're
a pedo.
They could be a pedophile. They've gone insane thanks to COVID restrictions. Like it doesn't suggest anything normal or good. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's their new mother-in-law and her family have the group chat there.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe
I never considered that, but now I'm thinking
maybe they've married into like a Russian Orthodox family and they're all on Telegram for the family group chat. That's the most benign reason you can find for why your friend is signing up for Telegram. I don't know if it still sends those. Maybe I'm not sure if I have it on my phone at the moment.
Signal does the same thing though as well, which is like similar vibes. I mean, Signal is obviously far more like it's just person to person, which makes it even more kind of
exactly.
Okay, you're talking to a drug dealer, but
no judgment.
It feels better because Telegram, in my mind, the thing I think about Telegram is like it's for crypto pump and dumps. Yeah, like that's the thing that I kind of most comes across my radar is just like new crypto projects being like jump in the Telegram and to the moon, etc. However, let's talk about
so Pavel Durov's been arrested.
Yeah, he's been arrested in France.
He was arrested in France. He flew into France willingly and was arrested. As I said, he is a citizen of France and the United Arab Emirates.
And he's been arrested for facilitating terrorism and illegal activity.
Basically, yeah. It's still kind of vague and up in the air exactly what he's been arrested for. The French government, and this came through like the French security services that were surveilling him and making the case, I guess. That, it basically comes down to not cooperating with efforts to hand-wavy sort of things around like
crime. Yeah.
Crime facilitated by Telegram.
Yeah.
He's not been cooperating, and we have evidence to suggest that he's not acting in accordance with the law on these matters.
So I'm going to put a big disclaimer, at least over everything I say from here on out.
Okay.
You're a little bit more researched in this than I am, probably.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe more grounded. Everything I say from here on out is speculation based on random people and news organizations, but news organizations from around the world whose backing I don't really know, and I don't know the veracity of any of it.
No, well, I mean, there's a huge open sort of scope for speculation because no one actually knows in any great detail what he's alleged to have done.
Yeah, and that's annoyingly, once again, that's supposed to come out Monday afternoon European time, and of course we record on Monday evening Australian time. So
by the time it comes out, it may be incredibly clear the exact crimes he's accused of.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll lay out on the ground right now before we get too deep into it, because I actually went on a podcast today, The Briefing, which is the Southern Cross Austereo news podcast to talk about this, and the conversation that we had on that news podcast and all the questions that I was asked were basically around end-to-end encryption messages, which could very well be what they're talking about. So I had to answer a bunch of questions about end-to-end encryption in messaging apps, which is probably relevant, but it's worth thinking about. I'm not sure if people really know this. End-to-end encrypted messages are not on Telegram by default. You have to dig through like 50 fucking menus to turn them on. They are only engaged for like one-to-one conversations with people. They're not turned on for any of this group stuff that Telegram is kind of really well known for now. So none of those like big public channels where people are posting fucking people getting their heads popped on the battlefield in Ukraine or whatever. None of those are encrypted. The idea of like big sort of like child porn exchange rings on Telegram, none of that is encrypted. It could very well be happening, but it's not encrypted. Basically, all I want to flag is like this stuff about end-to-end encryption, which we can talk about because it's still kind of relevant. I don't think is actually like that's more a Signal thing.
Yeah.
It's only a small bit of what Telegram does, and as like the current one of the leaders at the Electronic Frontiers Foundation did like a tweet thread where they were kind of like
they're blowing up about like the scam that is Telegram, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of people talk about the fact that A, it's not that secure.
Yeah.
it's probably deeply compromised by like Russian security services. But it's also the fact it's like most people aren't using Telegram for like encrypted one-to-one chats. It is happening. You got the secret chats feature, but it's not really the main reason people are using it.
Yeah. This is what I mean by like there's just accusations flying around in plenty. So first, let's start with so he's been arrested in France for this stuff. As I said, he has a complex background where he was anti the Russian government to the point where there's a famous photo of him giving the finger to Putin, not literally to Putin, but like, you know, Putin wanted some information and he took a photo of himself giving it the rude finger in a photo saying like, F you, Putin. We can kind of get into like what his actual relationship is with the Russian government and what it's speculated to be. But anyway, as some context, like that's kind of the vibe, which means that right now, people like Elon Musk are being like this epic patriot freedom fighter who just stands up for free speech has been arrested in France. This is what happens. Like this is what they don't want you to do. They don't want free speech to exist on the internet. And like he's a victim because the woke Europeans and whatever hate free speech. That's kind of the vibe, right? Tucker Carlson interviewed him you know, a couple of months ago and talking about how the CIA tried to like recruit one of his devs so that they could get a backdoor into Telegram because of all of the secrets on there and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, he stood up to them because he wants like free speech to exist. That's kind of the immediate reaction, I would say, on like Western social media.
Yeah. Totally. It gets sucked. It's been sucked into this broader discourse around like Elon Musk led the idea that like Meta and like Instagram and like in conjunction with like Western security services and whatever for old Twitter have been censoring you, suppressing, you know, generally conservative viewpoints.
Yeah.
And everything you see online is sort of compromised by that.
Yeah. Whereas Andrew Tate's even firing off about
Whereas Telegram, it may seem skeezy and sleazy to you, but people can say what they like on there without fear of reprisal. And that's like where real free speech lies.
Yeah, exactly. So like in the UK, they can say that an immigrant raped someone when that didn't happen and start race riots. You can do that kind of free speech stuff. You know?
Exactly. And it's like, so the whole idea behind this argument is that like they took him down and arrested him for being the one man who had the courage to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Or allow the truth to be told on his platform or whatever.
Yeah. With some kind of Ukraine stuff thrown in there vaguely. Now I'm going to get into like rank speculation.
Please. I respect it.
Firstly, it is being queried, and I'm going to be perfect. I don't know. Like, I have no idea what the truth is here. But it does seem like, so Telegram hasn't made, it's not profitable. It's been around 10 years.
Well, it's a not-for-profit.
Yeah, .org. That's true. But like, it loses lots and lots of money. It had to raise money a few years ago to the order of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, yeah, I would love to know. So I was actually trying to figure this out because I hadn't really thought about it in a very long time. I was like, what is Telegram's monetization model?
Well, so I looked into this. You'll be happy to know.
Yeah.
It does have ads, and then it has a subscription model.
Yes.
But the money it makes from subscriptions is something to the order of $12 to $20 million
well, yeah,
a year.
Like Telegram Pro, and it basically gives you like faster uploads and like a handful of other benefits where it's kind of like, that's not going to blow the roof off.
No, totally. And their annual costs are in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year, just for the size of the organization, of the like how big it is.
And they put ads, they slot ads only into like those broadcast channels.
Yeah.
Or those like one-to-many channels that they have.
Yeah.
They don't put ads in your group chats or your one-to-one messages. You don't see them. You only see them in certain contexts and whatever. That's not a like pumping ad product.
No, totally. They tried to launch their own crypto token, which got shut down by the SEC.
Yes.
That led to a couple of years ago, they had to do a convertible note round, like a debt round, but the debt converts into shares at a discount, blah, blah, blah. You either know about it or you don't. Doesn't matter. But they raised a bunch of cash, $500 million. And when you dig into it, a lot of the people who are investing are Russian oligarchs, which... You know, this is the platform that started because of like up you to Putin. It is what it is. People who are quite close to the Kremlin and Putin are investing money in.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Here's the. I'm not going to call it like a conspiracy theory argument, but there is an argument that is made that whether it's intentional in, you know, collaboration with the founders or whether it's, just the fact that the FSB, which is the Russian...
It's the KGB.
It's the KGB successor, yeah. Are just really good at what they do. But is the idea being that it's a completely compromised social network. And, Wired did a big report about people who are anti the Russian government, who live within Russia, have found that they've been arrested or compromised based on stuff that they've posted on Telegram chats.
Yeah, which is exactly the reason that he, in the end, bailed from VKontakte. So, that's I don't know if that's either here or there, but, that's the vibe.
But, and there's also a counterpoint that I saw people making online as well, which is well, that may well be true, but let's be honest, every single social network on Earth is probably compromised by security state apparatuses to some degree.
Well, and not just, I say this all the time, and not just freaking social media. If you have a database with tens of thousands of people, of customers in it, and a bunch of customer data, someone's in there.
Someone's in there. You probably have a CIA operative on your payroll. That's just the way the world works.
Yeah. That's it, folks. I mean,
not Downround.
Not Downround.
Downround is not compromised by any state intelligence. Actually, that's a lie. For years, and I'm sorry to admit this, every single one of our episodes has been edited by a senior member of the Pakistani CIA.
That's true. So we are pro Imran Khan, though. Strictly pro Imran Khan.
Or maybe we're anti. I actually don't know what the dynamics are.
The current dynamic is? But surely he's out of jail.
We have a strong view on him. I can't tell you in which direction.
Yeah, anyway, so there's this kind of vagaries around is he a Russian asset and all of the finger to Putin was a lie, or that was legit, but they're just in there anyway because they want to be, because, if you've got a heap of Russians on your platform, then, FSB is going to be able to do it. Who knows? We don't know. And then it's okay, and the French arresting him, though, why? Is it just plain and simple they were mad because... The one that I feel is the least true is... illegal things were happening on Telegram and he didn't do enough to stop them.
Yeah, here's the thing that makes it all kind of all pieces. I think that's just bullshit.
Yes.
There's no reason the French authorities would come down insanely hard on
we should describe. So he's flying around. He was in Azerbaijan. He was in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan even perhaps. I don't know. Don't quote me. Definitely Azerbaijan. And then he flew on his private jet into France, and while he was in the air and wouldn't have known, they issued the arrest warrant. So the second he touched down, bang, they grabbed him, chucked him in jail.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's I can't look at that situation and not think there's some sort of broader geopolitical thing that's going on.
Exactly.
There. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist, obviously, to be
he's pissed someone off.
It's happening during the Russia-Ukraine war. And
as well as off the back of the friggin' French election.
Yeah, the French election with all that sort of stuff. The general feeling. I think that NATO and you... See, all about it when you say NATO. It's you're going down a path. But I mean, let's say the allied... Well, kind of let's say NATO.
Yeah.
But US and European,
some kind of treaty organization in the North Atlantic.
Yeah, if Europe and the US had some sort of alliance, hypothetically, what would it be? No, but I mean, in much the same way as there's a huge amount of security state unease about TikTok.
Yeah,
about this feeling of here is a foreign controlled application or platform by one of our adversaries
that has
a huge amount of influence. But I think Russia is a much more... China has that weird kind of great powers conflict thing they've got going on. And this idea of
China...
We're struggling for supremacy. Whereas at least with Russia, they have more of a direct... There's a war that we're funding the other side of.
Yeah.
And we've had this sort of security state conflict for decades and decades, blah, 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 blah. Don't have to get into all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it does strike me that there's something going on there.
Oh, yeah. I think if I was to actually have a guess at it, have a red hot crack at it, and we should say, he was kind of lauded by the West as this anti-Putin guy back in the mid-2000s.
Like a Navalny sort of guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then now I think people are a bit more pissed off at him. In fact, if I'm going to have a guess, I think that it has probably more to do with quote unquote kind of interference in local elections and issues. It is like there's this platform that probably does have some ties and investments to Russia, even if it's not like he's a friggin' Putin puppet or whatever. Like it's like, you know, there's enough ties. It's enough kind of, FSB's in there one way or another. And there are these big channels in there that are stirring up bullshit in my country being like France or the UK or the US or whatever, with quote unquote conspiracy theories and probably a lot of right-wing stuff, probably a lot of left-wing stuff, especially in places, as I say, like France, which you've got Macron with like centrists. They're pissed off that it's like, you're somewhat Putin adjacent. Your platform is causing bullshit in my country. That's what it feels like to me. Maybe that's overly simplistic, as well as some Ukraine war kind of stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think in its totality, you don't have to, as I said, you don't have to get into like conspiracy theory mindset to think that the authorities in a lot of Western countries look at Telegram and go, I don't like that at all.
Exactly.
Because you're right. Like, when all these sort of like anti-lockdown COVID protests were organized through Telegram channels, even in Australia, with all this sort of stuff, it's like a weird, and don't get me wrong, to provide, just to play devil's advocate and do whatever, a lot of that stuff was also organized in like fucking Facebook groups and shit like that.
Totally. And
you know, it's not
and WhatsApp and whatnot. Yeah.
And, I mean, a lot of them were like funneling them into Telegram channels or whatever. And sure, maybe it could very well be, it could turn out that all of these fucking COVID lockdown protest groups were like organized and directed by Russian security services or whatever via Telegram. Fine, that might be true, but it certainly, the vibe is what I think is looked at here.
Yeah, and presumably, like, if even in Australia, not that we have anything to do with this, hopefully, Assange has probably got an opinion.
Yep.
But regardless, if you're the French, security apparatus, is it GHD or is that someone else? Is that Germany?
GHB.
Shouldn't take GHB, folks. And you're like, hey, can you shut down this channel that's like causing riots? And they're like, we're actually free speech and we're not going to do that. You're going to piss off some countries. You know what I mean? Like, if they actually don't play ball well with the authorities, then you're just going to piss off a lot of people who will then start yelling to the Prime Minister or the President, we got to arrest this bloke.
Yeah, totally.
He pissed enough people off because they feel like they're disrupting their countries and not doing enough to stop it when they ask him to stop it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because it is interesting, and, I talk about this podcast that I was on today where I ended up talking about end-to-end encryption, which, don't get me wrong, is definitely an issue, and it's like a live issue, and it's something that we've talked about in the past, just to get people up to speed. Like the idea that platforms like iMessage or Telegram or Signal or WhatsApp offer end-to-end encryption products in whatever context, whether it's entirely for something like Signal or like a mode you turn on, like a private chat mode, where the conversation is between two endpoints or two parties, and not even the platform has access to the actual messaging. It's not stored in a central server. It's tunneled directly from person to person. Yeah. So as a result, even if a law enforcement agency subpoenaed it,
if the FBI goes to Apple and says, tell us what was in the messages between these two
they're
people.
Like, we literally can't. We got no idea. We can't make it happen. And it would require Apple or WhatsApp or whoever to actually put some sort of like,
quote unquote backdoor.
Like backdoor that's collecting that data. And don't get me wrong, this is like a big issue, but I think it is interesting that all the news coverage has been about this particular thing when this guy's been arrested. And maybe it is part of their calculation. Again, you may know better when you listen to this podcast, and maybe there's a bit more detail on why he was arrested. But as I said, people think about that as being what Telegram is if you're kind of relatively uninformed about it and don't think about it. That's not even really the main thing. The main thing Telegram is like these big broadcast channels, which are often about psycho stuff.
Yeah. This isn't really the encryption debate thing. Because if you wanted to have the encryption debate, it's with Apple. Realistically.
Realistically. And they have.
And they have, and they said, fuck off.
The FBI are constantly trying to stir shit with Apple because they don't want to get rid of end-to-end encryption on iMessage. This idea that, there could be people having conversations about
sharing child porn.
Sharing child porn. Although, crimes.
Crimes.
Crimes. The other part of it, at least in the case of child porn, there are other things like, like they detect automatically when it's on the device.
Yes and no. I've said this on Down Round before. I'm maybe one of the few people. Well, okay, more context. So Apple end-to-end encryption, they suggested this solution for child sexual exploitation material, CSAM, where there's an independent body that has a database of like hashed known CSAM material. Hashed being like, it's not the actual images. The images are turned into a series of numbers unique to it. And Apple would have access to these hashed database, and images that were shared, that were on iCloud, like on your storage or whatever, would automatically be hashed and compared to this database.
Yep.
And were 8 of them or something, it had to get over some kind of point, flagged, then you would be flagged and sent to the authorities. Everyone lost their marbles about this, and they've walked it back. They say, okay, we're not doing that anymore. I think we might have discussed it before. Like, it is a somewhat interesting debate in that I do understand there's a discomfort with the idea that the thing you go and purchase a phone from a store for whatever $2,000, and it's treating you somewhat like a criminal. It's scanning your photos. On the other hand, my opinion is that solutions like that somewhat all it's doing is trying to match a hash against a known database and like has some kind of threshold. That to me actually seems like a relatively elegant solution, because at the end of the day, I'm not into fucking CSAM.
You and I both.
I think it would be good if we stop that from happening. So I'll put that out there. I know that people, that's like the big, it's like, oh, not you, but like people use, and it's true. Like
I certainly hope. Yeah.
No, the security agencies or whatever use, like, they always throw up child porn as like, child porn, therefore we need to invade your rights. I do get that. I do get that. But if someone like Apple is able to implement, you still maintain your privacy, but we can maybe detect if you've got a bit of fucking CSAM on your phone and people can go and have a look. I didn't think that was the worst solution in the world.
No, well, yeah. I think a lot of this sort of just tries to get around the fact. And this is actually what I was kind of put on the spot to answer while I was on the other podcast today. And again, I answered in such a way where I was kind of like, I don't think this is actually the problem with the Telegram stuff. I'll be interested to see, because it very well may be, and I wouldn't be shocked if what we were talking about is true, and they're mostly mad about it being like an instrument of foreign influence and like being something that influences local politics in like a malign sort of way. It would be interesting if they come out and they say, no, it's actually because of the like child porn, essentially, and like people exchanging that,
which they probably could do, right?
Because don't get me wrong, I think a lot of that stuff does happen on Telegram.
Yeah,
but it also happens a lot on. Because here's the thing, maybe we're drifting from the Telegram point, but it's worth talking about. I basically had to say, because I was put on the spot and basically was asked like, do you think it's worth it having end-to-end encryption on your devices? And it's a really complicated question for me, because I'm kind of like, I think a baseline expectation that a conversation between two parties over whatever channel should be private. It's just like a basic expectation.
Yeah.
The idea of, if I'm talking to you right now, we're sitting in like a closed, locked off room in person.
Yeah.
I think it would be weird if someone was listening to us right now.
If someone were, yeah, assuming the mics were off.
But actually, many thousands of people are listening to this, but assuming there were no mics.
Yeah, there is an expectation, and were law enforcement to want to listen, my expectation was they had to get a warrant from a judge.
Get a warrant, or listen, or download the Dan Rowan podcast.
Exactly, or subscribe and pay for premium, ideally, and you won't get the ads.
But, so there's that. And I think that's a reasonable expectation. Many people have built entire structures around that, and that's what end-to-end encryption comes from. But it's also like, we do also have to understand that the existence of a mass communication network like the internet with entirely privatized systems does have some fairly fucked externalities.
Yeah.
And one of them is that, as many people have said, the exchange and production of things like child abuse material and whatever has just gone through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
Because you can produce it and exchange it through private channels.
Yeah.
That To me, that doesn't necessarily mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater and all of a sudden all your communications are surveilled.
Absolutely.
But it does make you think, what are some other solutions we can have
exactly
to resolve that? And I
which
think
is what it comes back, like, which is why I'm like, and, you know, Apple said that they've wound it back because of, like, the blow up.
Yeah.
But I actually thought that, like, at the end of the day, if we do want to preserve privacy between you and me on iMessage and not have, you know, a friggin' Snowden situation or whatever, which I'm also against, where the government just hoovers up all the information just in case. So in the future, they can look back at records. Like, we don't want that either. We want to have a situation where, like, they need to get a warrant to look at your and my chats. Unless some hashed images are matched with a hashed image database or whatever, and that gets flagged, and then people can look at my phone. Given that we blew up and said, like, no, the hashed images thing, we don't stand for that. It's still too much of an invasion of our privacy. What that will lead to is, in the end, encryption will be made illegal.
Yeah.
It'll lead to a more extreme outcome where, like, it's like, well, if companies like Apple or whatever and Google aren't implementing that, and Google is way worse for privacy, obviously they always have been.
Yeah.
And you do hear crazy stories about people taking a photo of their kid in the bath and then, you know, getting flagged and then all of their accounts being shut down.
That's true.
Crazy
That's true.
stuff.
And probably Google is like hashing your child porn images and sending it to law enforcement, and then also like updating their fucking algorithm about what they're targeting to.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just the kind of company it is.
Yeah, and giving you YouTube videos of friggin' teenage cheerleaders and shit, like, you know, and
that
running
kind of
ads
gear.
against it, you know, that kind of gear. But regardless, unless we come up with some kind of compromise solution, which, as I said, I think the Apple solution was, it'll end up way worse. It'll just end up with, like, countries like Australia, they constantly kind of flagging, like, do we ban encryption? Do we ban end-to-end encryption? Do we just make it illegal?
Yeah.
And if a country says it's illegal, then businesses have to follow it or they have to pull out. It's as simple as that. Same as, like, I get annoyed when people are like, can you believe that Apple is complying with Chinese laws in China and handing over, like, this information? And it's like, yes, I can believe that. You have to follow the laws of the countries if you're a business. You can be, like, a legend radical if you want.
Can be Elon Musk and whatever, sue the Brazilian Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, but notice he never says anything about China.
No,
Like,
that's true. No. He needs those fucking Shanghai gigafactories pumping.
Yeah, and not to mention the sales. So, like, there's only so far that people will go. Like, you have to comply with
it is very funny that he's picked Brazil as, like, his country to get really arced up about.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, say that in the favelas in Rio, mate.
Yeah. No, but you're right. It is interesting. I mean, it could very well end up being very relevant. As much as I sit here and I say, this is not actually the problem with Telegram, it could very be with the argument that they make. And I feel like if they do make this argument that it's about end-to-end encryption, child abuse material, terrorist recruiting or whatever, and they're talking about encrypted end-to-end, you will know immediately that something else is afoot.
Yes.
Because
they're not, yeah.
I don't think Telegram is the main offender in that regard. And main offender is just is a weird way to put it, because as we said, fucking Apple iMessage, if you turn on private chats on Facebook Messenger, these are all end-to-end encrypted platforms, and WhatsApp end-to-end encrypted if you select the right, you turn it on in the menu. So if they start talking about this, if France goes on about this being the reason they've arrested Pavel Durov, you will know.
Yeah.
You'll know because you've listened to Dan Round. Something else is afoot.
Yeah, there's some bullshit afoot.
But then if they talk about something else, I don't know.
If it is about, like, unrest and, you know, friggin' influencing elections, and it's like, probably something there. You know?
All right, well, they've come out with it. But anyway, that's the thing. All I can tell you, and this comes from both of us, whatever you're doing in your fucking messaging apps, fucking quit it.
Yeah. Be normal.
Just be normal.
Yeah.
Just send a message to your mate. Do you want to go to the pub tonight? 6:30.
Yeah.
Trivia's on.
We'll leave at halftime if we're doing shit.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Raph.
Hey, James.
Did you know that you can get an extra episode of Down Round every single week on top of the one that you're already getting?
Yeah, I knew that.
Well, yeah, obviously you know, but the person is, I'm using you as a vessel to explain.
Sorry, as I'm the listener. No, go on, tell me more, James. How much does it cost?
A mere $7 a month, Raf.
Okay, where do I go to find out more about this?
You go to downround.net.
Okay, I want it.
Well, I'm sure you do.
I feel like I'm missing out by not having it.
Exactly. No ads. Second episode per week, and a few other little goodies that coming down the pipeline as well. Head to downround.net.
Downround.net.
And sign up to Downround Premium.